can be a busy day, even though we're hoping for it to be a time of rest. So we're going to give you an opportunity to relax and just listening to some stories. But first I wanted to actually have you help me make a list about, we think of homeless people as sort of the other sometimes, that we don't recognize as much as how much, come on in. So, how much we all share together. And so I want us to come up with a list, help me to come up with a list of things that we know that if we were homeless, what would be some of the things that we would lose? And I also want to say, you should never talk about any community in terms of their losses. But we're just going to start there, and then our discussion today will be a lot about resilience. You'll see a lot of resilience in the stories that we're saying. But if we were to imagine ourselves being homeless, what are some of the things that we would lose from the life that we have now?
I think one of the worst is self-confidence.
Self-confidence.
Because that's paralyzing.
Definitely. Anything else? Housing.
Yeah.
A home.
Family and friends.
Family and friends. This one
I think at a very basic level, sort of like security and privacy.
This is instantly becoming difficult. I was trying to make your absolute
Sorry.
security. So I'm going to say physical safety.
Right.
And then sense of safety and privacy would be here. Yeah.
Routine.
A routine.
Transportation.
Transportation.
Regular personal hygiene.
That becomes hard. I'm a terrible speller. No, we don't. I don't know. There's an I someplace. There's an I. Is that similar?
You become disenfranchised. You can't vote anymore.
Oh yeah, you lose some rights. You lose rights.
An address for mail or
Yeah.
Actually, among them, P.O. Box. As a ministry, we couldn't get a P.O. Box because we didn't have an office. We were working out of the car.
Right. Right.
Same as our
Right.
people.
I'm also going to say access to good medical care.
yeah, consistent.
You lose all your stuff,
Stuff.
but
Clothing. I'm just thinking of immediate things, clothing.
and also the things that make like pictures. You don't have pictures of family. You know, the things that
So you're
make you
losing
who
your,
you are.
You're losing your history.
Yeah, your history, right.
Well, we could go on and on in this list, and it's really interesting. I was trying to do a list of the sort of the physical stuff that you lose, your housing, your clothes, that you need. When we think of homeless folks, we're often thinking about feeding them and clothing them and giving them shelter, and those are really important things. And we could go on and on about those lists. But then you all were really right on target about. We started with these things, the things that you can't, that aren't stuff, the things you can't quite put your finger on, but you know in yourself what would be the most damaging, not necessarily the most damaging, but when you lose physical safety, you also lose a sense of safety, and you become so vulnerable in the world. And when you lose your address, your family, your friends, you lose your sort of psychic self, or who your dreams, who you thought you were, and who you were, and who you thought you were, where you thought you were going, and when you lose your privacy, you lose your inability to sort of connect with yourself, and privacy is a big thing that homeless folks lose. I heard one guy was telling me that to be able to go into a bathroom and turn that the bathroom stall is where he has his privacy. To be able to go to a public bathroom, not the bathrooms in the shelters, be able to put that lock on and just even stand or sit there for a minute. You don't have, when you are homeless, you don't have much eyes off you time. That's how he described it. I don't have much eyes off me time. People are always able to see me, whether I want to be seen or not. And so you lose that. You're living your private life in a public space, and you're also living your life as if people can see you not in the best way that you'd like to present yourself. So it's also like walking around with a "I failed" sign on you. So the material losses of homelessness are important, and people need services to address their material losses. But as we're saying, like, homelessness is also a spiritual wounding. All of these things have to do with the spiritual, loss of sense of hope, a loss of walking around with a sense of shame. These are all really debilitating parts of homelessness. And that's what Chaplains on the Way is trying to address, those issues, to connect people with what we call spiritually companion someone. When we companion someone, we are showing up to show them that they are of worth and dignity in our minds, and hopefully that again and again when we show up, that is something that we're instilling in them as well. And we find, you wouldn't believe how grateful people are, and how much they think we should be doing other things rather than sitting and talking with them. We're also hoping with some of the stuff that we do, which we'll talk about in a minute, to bring a sense of community. So when all of this leads to a sense of isolation, and a stronger word for me than isolation is alienation, which is what I think a lot of the folks that we hang out with feel like they're an alien. It's not just that they're alone, but they are so different and so not of this world, and so everything that's happening in this world, everything that's on television, everything at Christmas, the lights, everything is not of who they are. They don't. There's no place for them to participate. So when we pull chairs together, at McDonald's or in any circle that we make, we are becoming part of a circle with them. And that's what we're hoping to do. But there's just a lot of talking we can do, or the most important thing, because what we're trying to do is always be in relationship, is for you to hear some stories. So, oh yes, by the way, I should introduce myself. It's such a cozy group, I just forgot about that. My name is Becky Shebley Hall, and I'm one of the chaplains. I work with Joan Murray, and I was, about 3 years ago, one of her field ed students, and that's part of our mission, which we'll talk about. And Court is now one of our field ed students. We have two, and Court is going to talk to you, give you a story, paint you a picture.
Thanks everybody for coming. So one of the things Reverend Joan talks about, and Becky mentioned that like people need things. Like when we're at McDonald's, you can't really sit there with a coffee when somebody else doesn't have a buck for a coffee or for a, so we do buy things for people, and we do help folks with advocacy of filling out forms for, and all those things are important. But Reverend Joan always talks about that stuff as being transactional, and we try to be more relational. And I think about that, okay. And mostly what we try to do is just be with people. And it's a skill that I had to kind of learn, because I just want to get in there and like start fixing stuff and and that's really not, that's not what we do. We just sort of be with people, and sometimes these actions do take place, but it's really God fixing stuff. God sort of flows through us into these other folks, and from them into us. You know, for me, like, I'm not really aware what's going on, and then all of a sudden I'm like, holy smokes, like a lot of cracks in my foundation I didn't even know were there are being healed by the love of the Spirit flowing through them into me, and vice versa. It's pretty neat. So it's something you really don't want to miss out on. I honestly, I just do it for myself. I'm not that nice a guy. So one of our folks, to tell you about, and I've got his permission to tell the story, Bobby. We normally keep things anonymous, but I checked with Bobby, and it's okay with him. So Bobby met, Joan was one of the first, Bobby was one of the first people Joan met, like 5 years ago when she was starting the ministry, and Bobby had lived under the bridge for about 6 years, as he would put it, like a wild animal is how Bobby would describe it. And Bobby was very damaged, very, very sick guy, and Joan ran into him at the soup kitchen and probably made the rookie error of asking him how he was doing or something crazy like that. And Bobby just snapped like a dry twig on Joan. It was like January or February, and it was like 3 degrees out the night before. And the bridge is a miserable place, but it's sheltered from the breeze, from the wind for the most part. But it's still cold, and there's a lot of garbage there, and there's a lot of drugs and alcohol and violence and human waste, and it's a lovely place to live and to sleep. And Bobby was, he was like that, like a wounded animal more than a wild animal to me, like he's going to protect himself and lash out. And Joan asked him how he was doing, and he starts screaming at her in the soup kitchen. Did you have any idea how cold it was under that bridge last night? And Joan's just standing there, and people get thrown out of them and banned from the soup kitchen for far less than screaming at a chaplain. And Joan's just standing there, and he continues to just scream at her. Do you have any idea how cold it was under that bridge? And, in her humility, Joan said, no, I don't know I have no idea how cold it was under that bridge. And unbeknownst to either of them, that was the first pastoral counseling meeting that Joan and Bobby had. And Joan probably, Joan was a chaplain, but Bobby probably didn't see himself as a parishioner at that time. But that's really what he was. And that was their first conversation. And one of the neat things about being part of the chaplaincy is that when you're there, the idea is to be present and allow people to empower themselves. One of the things that you mentioned but didn't write specifically is autonomy and being disempowered. Like, people lose their right to make their own decisions and lose autonomy, lose power over their own lives. And for us or for anybody to come in, again, people need things and they do need help with stuff. They do need a ride, but to come in and to start, hands-on helping and, well, let's do this and let's do that. It not that it's bad, but it further disempowers in a way. So to just be there for people and to encourage them and to let them, because they already often know way more about the system than I do, way more about, somebody who's having an alcohol and drug problem, they probably know a lot more about the local detox, a lot more than I do. So to let them make their own positive decisions in their own lives empowers them. So anyway, Bobby ends up getting housing, getting off the street. He had an apartment, and fast forward, but the apartment was about a maybe 7 by 10 or 11 foot room. But for him, he loved this place, and the chaplains on the way visited him every week. So when I started there in September, Joan started bringing me on the visits, and Bobby likes to play chess. Well, what he likes to do is teach the local guys how to play chess and destroy them when they don't know how to really play. So I used to play chess in like junior high, so I'm like, all right, I'll play. So we played a game, and I had a chance to take Bobby's queen. And I'm sitting here thinking, agonizing, I'm like, should I let the guy win? Or should I crush Bobby? So I took the queen. I took the queen, I prayed first. I
You
prayed
had permission.
I prayed first, and I'm like, what should I do here? And I was like, just take the queen. So I ended up beating Bobby in that particular game. And over the next few weeks, we would go back and we would play chess, and I kept playing it straight. You know, and in retrospect, I can see that was the right thing to do. At the time, I was like, boy, should I throw one of these? But I kept playing, and eventually, Bobby got a chance to move into another building, into a public housing. So basically, most of the income that he did have, like 80% or 90% of it was going toward his rent at this place. So he was going to get a chance to move into public housing, pay about like less than half the rent, and have a little apartment. And he thought about this and thought about it, and then he canceled his appointment. And he couldn't, he was afraid to move. He had gotten used to living at this place. He knew the people there. He liked the people there. And they actually set him up with the appointment, and he was afraid to move, and he canceled the appointment. So we were like, I mean, his room was like a shoebox, and wall to wall covered with pictures of women, right? From you know, Maxim, and mostly not pornographic stuff, but you know, it was rough for the female chaplains to go in. But so we were playing chess, and I said, geez, Bobby, maybe just, what do you got to lose? Give it a shot. And for some reason, he listened to us and decided to get another appointment to see this apartment. And in retrospect, I think if I threw those chess matches, he would have seen me as a phony and a fraud, and known I was playing him like a chump. That this guy thinks he's throwing chess. But I don't know, for some reason he listened. And his ride fell through. He was supposed to check this place out, and his ride fell through. And Bobby doesn't walk very well. From those times under the bridge, he has really bad, he had frostbite many times in his feet, and a lot of the nerves in his feet are dead. So he walks really slow. So it took Bobby over an hour to walk to this apartment to check this place out. And he did it. And then he had to walk back. He had to walk all the way home. So Bobby really did it for himself. You know, he did it. Like we didn't drive him there. He took care of this himself. And the next week we visited him. He says, "I really want you guys to." Well, he can't talk. Bobby had cancer. Bobby's been through a lot. After he found a home, he what was it? Throat cancer, and he can't talk. So he writes a lot of notes. So and emotions and. So we decided he wanted to take us over to see his new apartment. Well, okay, Bobby, we'll go over to see your apartment. Why not? So we skipped the chess game and we drive over to the apartment, and we walk in, and it's this beautiful, bright room with a huge window, and it's really clean. It's spotless. And the living room, he's got his own kitchen, and he's writing, I can make meatloaf. He wants to make meatloaf. He's got his own little kitchen, and it had a walk-in bathroom. His other bathroom was, I mean, you couldn't close the door when you were in there, and the shower was like, it was really rough. And he had a bathroom with a rail so he could hold up, but the living room was about 2.5 times the size of his whole apartment. And it has a balcony on it. And it's got a bedroom that's about twice the size of his old apartment. And when we walk through the door, Bobby stands in front of the door, and we're looking around like, wow, with our jaws dropping, wow, this is a sweet place, this is holy smokes. And Bobby, this little steel marshmallow I call him, he's a little tough guy, but he's a softie, just starts crying, and tears just start pouring down his face. And he had a real home, you know. And then when he invited us into that home, when we visit him, he baked muffins for us. You know, he baked muffins, and he had coffee, and he had it all laid out. And he had, you know, and, he had become he was always a human being, but he'd become a human being in his eyes, where he was now offering hospitality. It wasn't us going there. We actually kind of felt bad. He was like, you know, hooking us up with snacks. I mean, for Christmas, he gave me a hockey shirt, which is one of like his 5 shirts, you know, and he got this deal on this hockey shirt when he was buying it. Bobby could swing a deal. And he was buying a coffee table, and he got him to throw in a hockey shirt, and it was this nice hockey shirt. And the next thing I know, for Christmas, Joan's got this golf shirt that he bought her.
Mickey
And-
Mouse, Walt Disney.
Yeah, a Disney shirt with like orange, and I got this hockey shirt, and I'm like, you know, what do you do? He's like, you have to take the shirt, and I feel bad. I'm taking like one of the guy's 5 shirts, but it was important to him to be able to give again and to be able to, you know, to do this stuff, and it was beautiful. It was sort of a full circle thing. It was very, very beautiful. A short while later, Bobby was out walking on ice, and he slipped 3 times. Okay, and he broke his elbow, and he broke his hip, and he cracked his pelvis. And I was on vacation for a couple of weeks over the winter break, and Joan and Becky weren't able to get Bobby to go to the hospital because he's like 5'4", 105 pounds, and John Wayne, all duked out. He doesn't need to go to hospitals. He's gonna tough it out. And finally, they were working on him, and he had agreed to go to the hospital, you know, at some point. I think Thursday or something. And I showed up Wednesday, and this is kind of how just the circle of care works. Where like I can't do certain things with Bob, you know, for Bobby. He's not interested in my take on certain things, and Becky and Joan are really good with other things. And when we have different personalities and working together, it sort of works. It's a neat thing. So it's cool that I'm really excited that they're hopefully hiring another chaplain this year, and it'll be great because these folks need this spiritual care. So Bobby, I show up. He's in his office chair. He can't stand up. He hasn't been. Now it's 2 weeks that he's had this stuff. And we just had different approaches, and I walked in like determined to not talk him into going to the hospital at all. I'm just gonna walk in there, and I'm just, you know, kind of a jerk, I guess. I don't know. I just walk in and I'm like, wow, that looks painful. Holy smokes! And he's trying to stand up, and he's grimacing. And I'm like, whew, boy, I wouldn't want to have to go through that. What's up, buddy? And I just sort of danced around the whole blade, you know, his arms like this. He shows it to me. The whole arm's black. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't look good. And then I sit down, like, we playing chess? What's going on? He's like, no, you know, and he goes over there, and he said, I'm thinking about going to the hospital, you know, tomorrow. I'm like, well, what's going to happen between today and tomorrow? That, you know, like, I don't know, if it was me, I'd get in there, you know, and all of a sudden, he sees me like I'm relatively healthy, and I'm like clearly way too much of a coward to go through that kind of agony to impress the girls. So Bobby all of a sudden was like, all right, let's go, you know, call 911. So I dialed 911, and lo and behold, Bobby's in the hospital, and we found out that he also has cancer again. So he's facing treatment on that. But you know, through the whole thing, Bobby's been able to walk side by side with people. Joan's always there, or Becky's over there, or someone else is there, and you know, to me, that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing. And the neatest thing to me about this is when Bobby was signing up for housing, he wrote this note, and he talked about an angel who came into his life 5 years ago. He was talking about Joan. And in the note, you know, he didn't thank Joan for getting him the housing, or for getting him this, or for getting that. He thanked God for working through Joan. Now, if you spend any time with Bobby, you know, Bobby's not like, that's a miracle right there. That is miraculous.
One of our services,
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
One.
So,
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
but-
no, I was gonna say that, you know,
Yeah, that's
that's
a
about it.
wonderful
For,
ending. That's a wonderful, that's a beautiful ending. I didn't know
Yeah.
that part about thanking God. Wow, that is good. So Court's giving you a good example of how we do what we call companioning folks through. So we're not social workers, we're not counselors, we're not advocacy people, but one of so we're doing this, what we call companioning, meeting people where they are, trying to bring them what we talked about before, the dignity and the respect, but there are, that's one of our missions. And so, and Joan talked to you about how we do that on the street. We're twice a week, we walk the streets and through the commons. In good weather, that we're meeting a lot of people. And in the winter, we pretty much just walk to McDonald's because it's so cold. But so we do that. Then we come back up and we'll go over to the Salvation Army for breakfast, and we go there for lunch. We go to the Waltham Community Day Center, which is just pretty much a drop-in center. And remember, all of this happens about 6 minutes from you. I didn't realize how close this was. I go by here all the time to go to work, not this beautiful street, but so this is just right over the hill there. We go to the Salvation Army, we go to the Bristol Arch Soup Kitchen at nights. Tuesday night, we go to the Women's Lodge. Bristol has a women's shelter. It has 14 beds in it. It's very nice. It's like a home, and the women are there. They have to leave. Both of these shelters, you need to leave around 7, and you can come back at 4, and you have to be in at 7 at night. And for the women that are walking up Bacon Street, that can be really hard. 7:05, and you may not have a place to sleep. So there's a whole bunch of tension about getting there right at 7. But we go, because the women don't come so much up where we're hanging out at the upper end of Moody, it's really nice that we can go to the shelter. And we do a knitting group there. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really like, women get together and we share a craft, and a lot of people don't know how to knit. I didn't really know how to knit, but we have volunteers that know how to knit, and we just sit and talk, Some churches have this, I think, stitch and chat. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. It works so well like that. And we have made, even if you're not, some of the women are amazing knitters. So they're glad to have the yarn that we bring, that folks donate to us. And others are just going to start to learn. And so we also make these squares sometimes if you don't have a project. And we collect the squares and we make them into an Afghan. One of our volunteers or one of the women put them together. We recently just are finishing an Afghan we're really happy with. There was a young woman staying at the shelter. Both shelters work that you're in for 3 months. You can be in for 3 months as long as you stay sober, which is a challenge for many people who are suffering with addiction. So as long as you stay sober, you can stay, and they can test you when they want to. You can stay in there for 3 months, and then you're out for a month. And that's a hard month for a lot of people. And then you can come back in. So, but they have like 1 or 2 beds in both places for folks that are working that can really document that it would really be useful for them to be able to stay a little longer. So they had a young woman in there who, she was so, she'd come from a very, she was a state or something. I don't know the details of it, and we don't need to know the details, but it took her a really long time to come into the living room where we are. She'd just poke around and kind of wave and go up. She did work, and they gave her the extended bed. We have a woman named Sally who's a volunteer of ours, who's a grandmother kind of person, and this young woman started to make a relationship with Sally, and she would only come when Sally was there, and the two of them would just chat it up, and Chris, the young woman never knit, but she would just sit with Sally, and that went on for about 4 months, and we celebrated her birthday. Oh, yeah, this is a great story. Sally had asked Krista told us it was her birthday, and she said, "I'm going to tell you I'm going to be 21." We all knew that wasn't how old she was, but that's the birthday she wanted. So Sally had asked her what her favorite cake was, and she had said what it was. And Sally came the next Tuesday with little cupcakes for everyone. And I took my phone out of my pocket and found candles on the phone and held them for we all sang her happy birthday, and Krista blew out the candles on my phone. And then the coolest thing was that Krista, as we were leaving, Krista came and she had made the exact same kind of cake. She made it in a cake for Sally. For my birthday, I want you to have a cake. It was really beautiful. And knowing that she had to go buy things like eggs, and she had to buy everything that went into that cake. So Sally was just walking down to the parking lot with me, and she was crying. It was really beautiful. So the women, suddenly, Krista got housing and kind of almost disappeared. We didn't know exactly that she was leaving. And the women who lived there with her, she becomes sort of like a daughter. And we all made squares, and the volunteers putting together the Afghan for us. And so we'll be giving her that for her new apartment that she's in. So that's a That's a real story. Okay, so then we also do, on Wednesdays, after we meet down at McDonald's, we walk across the street to Christ Church, where they've lent us a room to do meditation. So we do pull chairs together for a little meditation there. We also do meditation up at Home Suites Inn. We visit on Thursdays at the Home Suites Inn, which is off of Tottenham Pond Road. There are about 100 women and families, or a large
Yeah,
number.
about 130 families maybe.
130, yeah.
Like 209 kids at Christmas.
Yeah, Joan, we do the Christmas presents for them at Christmas as well. And we just do this thing. I think I was with you the first day that we went, I don't usually go there, but when I was a student with you, we went, remember that? I'm like, what are we gonna do? We're just gonna walk into this hotel, and they have a buffet breakfast, like for everybody. And we get there around 7:30, and women just are coming down with their children from having slept in these little rooms. And they're usually single moms, and they can have as many as 4, or they have a lot of kids with them sometimes. The buses come, and they take the older kids off, and then these women are with their toddlers there. And literally, we just sat there, or we would go up and we'd adore the child, and we'd get into conversation with the moms. And that's basically what we do. And then now we do a meditation afterwards. Yes.
So is that like a women's shelter then that's in
So
the
it isn't a
hotel?
women's shelter. It is
Okay.
not a women's shelter. It is that we can't find housing. We don't. Pretty much, if you are homeless with young children, they're going to find you someplace to be. But we don't have enough shelters, and we don't have enough housing. So they're starting to house, or they have been housing for many years, women in hotels,
That's the
motels.
It's
The state.
State.
The state.
Yes, Massachusetts is the only state that guarantees shelter for people who are eligible under a certain income, and so when the shelters are full, they put them in motels, and right now, it's the highest it's ever been in terms of families in hotels.
And there are men with children, single
And there are
men.
some-
And there are couples with their kids, yeah.
And can they stay in the same room? That is to say, they could keep their stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
They do
that's
that.
helpful.
But they can't cook or,
No,
some
just
of the hotels
microwave.
don't have.
But I mean, baby clothes,
People bring those things sometimes, like groups bring those. Well, you could answer those
Yeah.
questions.
No, but I mean, some of the churches do bring clothing and diapers, yeah. But they do stay in the same room, and they keep their things
Yeah.
there, that's good.
Yeah.
Does the state do anything to provide service? I mean, since there's such a high concentration of people at that hotel, do they have people come in there to help, or that's just housing and nothing else?
They actually do have quite a lot of service there, at that particular one anyway. There's
Not state
playgroup, and there's a social worker who's now there every day, or case manager, yeah.
Yeah.
The state assigns housing advocates to work with those folks to find housing, so it's the state
Isn't that
will
kind of
subcontract
new
with other
that
agencies.
That guy's been there?
Yes.
It's new.
I mean, there was
Made a
always,
big difference.
there was always a case manager, but there were so many people, and that person wasn't there I never saw the person there, but I'm only there once a week. But this man is there now. When I'm there and I asked him, he said he was there every day. So, yeah,
Okay.
so it's an increase of
Yeah, they definitely
service,
know.
yeah.
And he speaks
Yeah.
English, which is helpful.
And he encourages people to come to meditation.
Yes, he does.
Which is good.
So it seems kind of like, here we are with these people who have so many needs, and we're just sort of talking with them. And some of them have really hard stories that they want to tell, or we're, getting in a circle and meditating, and that seems kind of crazy, like all the different things you want to be helping them with. But what we realize is that there are other agencies that do that work, but nobody who sits down and says, so how are you doing? And really can sit and listen to the whole story of it. And if something about God comes up, to be able to say, how is this affecting your relationship with God? Or where do you find hope? Or to offer some of those things. So then we also, on Wednesdays, have, which anyone is welcome to. You'll see we have lists of ways to be involved with us, but one easy way and beautiful way, I think, is to come every Wednesday at 2:30. We have a communion service. I always say it's very low key, but I don't really know what that means, but it's very casual. We just circle, we have like a half circle of chairs. This is in the Presbyterian Church on Alder Street, which is a beautiful sanctuary. And we just circle the chairs, and we're looking at the stained glass windows, and there may be 7 people there. There could be 4 people there. There could be 10 people there. And so we do that, and then the second Wednesday of every month, we lay the labyrinth out, which is a gorgeous labyrinth that Joan and the minister at the Presbyterian Church made. And so after our service, we have nice music and we walk the labyrinth, and you're always welcome to come to that. And the other thing we do on Wednesdays is the Bible study at the men's shelter. So this is one of the aspects of our ministries, is this kind of companioning. The other thing that we try to do is act to like a bridge for folks to services. So it's not the first thing we say, but when someone is looking for, say, they need a doctor or something like that, after we get through with the conversation, we might try to get them a memory care doctor at the Joseph Smith Center. Or if someone is in the housing search and they need a ride someplace for something, we accompany people to services. I'm trying to accompany someone who's been living outside for about 12 years, having not as much luck with it. But I accompany him to places I think that can help him. And because on his own, and I explain things like when someone says, well, he has to stay at the shelter before, so he has an address. Like, well, so he's not going to be staying at the shelter. You know, he hasn't in 12 years. And, well, why can't he stay at the shelter? You know, I just try to accompany someone through some of those discussions. So that's part of what we do, is to act as a bridge to resources. And that means we, as community ministers, we need to know the resources, which is another thing. So that involves us, we meet with meetings and agencies. So we meet with the Waltham Ministerial Association when they meet. We meet with the Waltham Interagency. They have whatever. We do a bunch of different meetings that we go to. Another part of our mission is to train seminarians. So we have a relationship with all of the different schools, but we tend to have Andover Newton Theological Schools students, such as myself and Court and Lisa. And we also, sometimes students come just for a shorter period of time and walk with us. And some of us go on to know this is the work we want to do. That's what I'm doing. Some of us go on to preach, to include the stories of the folks and the systemic injustice of it in their sermons. So again, we're expanding the circle around the folks that we're serving. And then the last thing we do is, because you can't just watch this without being a part of systemic change. So that's another one of our goals, is to enter into that. I was going to put this out too. So we do things like February 27th is the Mass Coalition for the Homeless has a lobby day. And we bring our folks, some of us will all go down there and we'll get a little education on what the bill is they're working on, and then we'll go out and lobby together with our volunteers and the people from our ministry and anyone who wants to join us. And I have some stuff about that. So I want you guys to be able to talk. I had this idea of doing Liz's thing, but I'll just say briefly that we have a colleague who did this great graph sort of the other day about, traditionally we think of mission in a traditional church, we think of charity, which is giving of the stuff, you know, that folks need, you know, and giving money to agencies that are working with it. And that's a real need. It's not like it's not a need. We need money to be able to do the work that we're doing.
I was just gonna say, we need the money.
Our students tell you how much we need the money.
Yeah, we really do need help.
Yeah. And then after that came Service, yeah. So there's charity where you're giving stuff, service where you're giving yourself. You're working in soup kitchens, you're working at food banks and clothing. And then there is shared service where you're working in a soup kitchen where the folks who need the food are helping you cook, and then all of you sit down and eat together. And we have opportunities for that in our ministry. And then there's advocacy, because after you've done the shared service, you realize how much you need to bring this issue up, how much you need to carry these stories with you. So if you have sat at the table and had a nice meal with a guy who's homeless, then when you'll get on the phone and make a phone call, you'll write a letter, you'll tell your friends, so that's advocacy. And then the next thing is shared advocacy, which is what this is an example of, where you are going with the folks that you're speaking, not for them, but with them. And in the middle of all of that, so if you thought of that as a circle, which I didn't put up here, in the middle of all of that is companioning, which is our main focus, which is you companion people to know where to get the charity. You companion people to where to get the services. You companion folks like yourselves who might be interested in doing shared service. We companion folks who might be interested in doing shared advocacy. So right in the middle of that is the work that we're trying to do. And so if you have any questions, also, I mean, I could talk to you about ways that you might be able to be involved. And Joan can answer questions too. Sorry, we've just been talking to you about
What's your relationship like with the police in Waltham?
Yeah. Well, so we attend a meetings, HAC, what does that stand for?
Homelessness Assistance Coalition.
Yeah, so we attend those meetings. And
Run
they're-
by the police.
It's run by the police and all the different agencies that, or some of them, who work with homeless folks are there so we can connect. That meeting is moving towards something that feels more useful and welcoming to me. So they are showing us pictures of, this guy got arrested for that, this guy got arrested for that, and we pass them around and we know, and this guy's dangerous and stay away from him, and here's this guy's drunk again and all that. So there's a little of that, but we, some of that we need to know, but a lot of it we don't, and I think they're helpful to us when we ask them to be helpful to us.
Yeah, when it was very, very cold and I knew there were people sleeping under the bridge, I called this Sergeant Scarpone who runs the meeting and asked if they did check under the bridge, and they do regularly, pretty much, but that morning I asked him specifically if he could, so he sent somebody to go look, apparently he did it at 6 o'clock that evening to.
Yeah, I saw the lights.
Yeah.
And
Because Waltham isn't as, like Boston, just, there's a good organization for bad weather to get people, to let people go into shelters. I don't know.
It's not perfect.
that way in
No,
Waltham.
I mean, it's in the most of the burbs, it's not.
No.
And more resources.
What's the bridge you're talking about right over Moody Street?
No, not that one, because the water's under there. I
Right.
wondered, and everybody's talking about the bridge, and I kept looking under that bridge and thinking,
Yeah.
where is it?
And remember, the police
It's-
told you not to go to the bridge. It says,
Yeah,
you can
you
do
stay out of
this,
that
ma'am, but
bridge."
don't go to
Is
the
that the one
bridge.
near the factory, the watch factory? Because I know there are places
It goes,
over there.
no,
where
not
they-
that one either. It's the, because I think the river's under that. It goes towards Watertown. It's near
Or
the
Petco.
Main Street. If you go all the way
Goes up.
down Main Street, yeah.
There's a train track.
And there's no water underneath.
20, yeah.
It's a
Green is
bridge
the
over track, or maybe it's railroad tracks.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not the Charles River. It's not over the Charles River.
But what I love about Homestar is where you were, right?
Yes.
What I love about that is it really addresses the issue. It's almost kind of like that it's not, people's like, oh, sober up and then I'll find you a house, And it's like, when we go through crisis in our lives, that we can't do it. You can't do it in such transition that these folks are in. So I really like the idea. But then it's also like, you give them a house and everything will work. It's not that either.
No.
So you need both, you need the companioning and what people would, out in the secular world, would call services.
Supported housing.
Yeah, supportive housing, they need the services, they need the companioning, they need it all. And when I say they, it's what we would need too. There's really no differences.
Yeah, that's one of the neat things when you, for me anyway, after spending time with the folks, I always thought of it as us helping them, and you begin to realize that this is a little preachy, I'm preaching it.
Preach, go,
But
preach
there
it.
is no them. We're all part of the body, and we're all part of the body of Christ. We're all God's kids, and the more time you spend, you realize, like, holy smokes, that's totally can be me, and it's really a lot more comfortable to believe this could never possibly be me. But that's not really the reality. Some of our buddies down there are Harvard and MIT professors and a lot smarter and sharper than I ever was. And they're having the lasagna right next to me, so it's sobering.
Just wondering if you're seeing more people on the street related to opioids and, the kind of the epidemic that we're having in the state right now.
I'll tell you that
Heroin
at the
and
last
opioids.
meeting at the police station, they told us that they had 300 overdoses last year in Waltham. And a percentage of those didn't make it.
Are you guys carrying Narcan or anything?
Yeah, no, we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not. And that is a thought. My husband's a nurse with healthcare for the homeless, and they regularly have to do that in their lobby and stuff like that. And we see some, we know of some folks that, definitely, we know that they're high on that. Mostly we see the addiction and alcoholism, just devastating people. That's what we see up at our end, but then those 300 people are there, so I think it is going to be increasing.
Well, it'd be interesting because what the state has been doing is working with people that are actively using
Yes.
to carry Narcan.
Yes,
When
and
they're
their friends,
using with
yeah.
somebody else because they're most likely to. be
Do people
using
know what Narcan is? It's something that can bring you back. It's like the antidote to an opiate overdose.
And it's
So
nasally
it-
injected, so you don't have to worry
Yeah,
about.
so it's like, if your child's allergic to bees, you carry that
EpiPen.
EpiPen. So it's a similar thing. Of course, it's really difficult for the state or other people to go into that, but to want to do that. But that's a good question.
There are more younger people.
Yes,
It's
there are a lot,
cheap. It's so cheap
the
in the
highest, that's
streets.
what this lobby day is about. And I'll just say for this lobby, so the fastest growing population home for unattended minors, and they're going up from 24, the age of 24 and down, because a lot of kids have been like, they get out of foster care at 18, or they run away earlier than that, and then they're like, oh, there you go. And they have their needs are so different, their brains aren't fully formed, they have so much trauma, most of them. And their needs are different, and they're just not being addressed at all, and also they're invisible. They did a count with us. We see these kids all the time, and then all of a sudden they weren't there, because they sleep on people's couches, and they get in someone's car, or they get into unsafe relationships. They are so vulnerable. They're so vulnerable. So there's a bill right now, HR 135, that's been just sitting doing nothing for 3 years. Like even the person that sponsored it is doing nothing on it. So that's the focus of this lobby day. It's, like I said, it's Thursday the 27th February. You can go in on your own. You can register. It tells you how to register. Or we're actually also looking for people to do that shared advocacy with us, to come meet us at Alder Street and come in with us. Or when you're there, just to let us know you're there and join our group.
What's the bill?
So I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't read it out, but in
But
my
so-
mind, it is,
I think initially it
What's
was,
that
it formed a committee or a group to assess the needs of people of this age, homeless people of this age, 24 and.
And to potentially build a shelter specifically for them.
Yeah, and then, but
Services
now it
and
needs
everything.
funding, I mean, I think they've determined some things they want to do, maybe build a shelter, but it needs funding now to do this, to do something.
other things that we're looking for folks to do is, I didn't mention that we try to go on outings. And outings can be expensive, but also it's nice to do an outing with some people that to come to a church, to have a meal at a church, or to have, to go to a movie, we go to the MFA, we're going to the aquarium. Court got his funding just on his Facebook to go to the aquarium, because that's an expensive thing to do. So there's outings,
Well, we were at the Museum of Fine Arts, which was a long time ago now, and it was only a small group, but there was one man who kept walking around the museum, and he kept saying, I feel human again, I feel human again.
and then after an outing, it's really nice to go out to dinner or to lunch or something, it's just really, it's so
Yeah,
wonderful.
like
It's a really
pizza,
small,
it's not like a-
small group of, but a nice restaurant would be nice.